Good evening, I'm Jason Vio. Katarina is away tonight. This is CBC Windsor News. Thank you so much for watching. Tonight, a push for more pediatric care in our region. Plus, there's a public meeting happening right now to discuss issues around the downtown mission. Crime, litter, and public intoxication are all concerns coming from neighbors. Another concern, this one over a recent private meeting among members of council. It sparked a complaint, and now one expert says if it happens too often, it threatens our democracy. And police reveal why they were out canvassing along EC Row the past couple of days. It's related to a missing person investigation. A Windsor mom is pushing for more pediatric care in our region. It's a personal fight since her son was born with a life-changing condition, one that forced the family to leave the city for care. The CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa has that story.
This is Sully. Days after he was born, he was diagnosed with Hirschsprung's disease. It means he can't have bowel movements and has a bag attached to him. Since he was born, he's landed in the ER 3 times. And each time, his mom says Windsor Regional Hospital didn't provide him with the proper care and ended up transferring him outside of the region to Michigan or London.
It's incredibly difficult to have to go to Detroit or a hospital like London that's 2 hours away. And we're all grateful for the care that our children has received in those hospitals, but we shouldn't have to go to another country for treatment, and we shouldn't have to be sent to a hospital that's 2 hours away. We should have access to those things at home.
Across Ontario, there are 4 children's hospitals. While Windsor has a pediatric unit, it doesn't have a separate children's hospital or ER.
We must recognize that we are a community hospital. We are not pretending to be a children's hospital. We don't have the resources of a children's hospital.
Windsor Regional says that the number of children in the area doesn't warrant a separate children's hospital or specialized critical care unit. But when asked what that needs to be or how far off we are from it, it said it doesn't know. Windsor Regional sends about 4 kids per month from its ER and about 6 kids per month from its inpatient units to Michigan or London. Last year, 105 families from Windsor, Essex, stayed at London's Ronald McDonald House while their children received care. Another challenge is bringing doctors to the area. The hospital is looking to hire the region's first pediatric cardiologist by the end of the year. Yvette Erickson is Lo's friend. Her son Finn died 17 years ago. He had a bowel issue and was sent to London by air ambulance. Erickson wonders if the outcome would have been different had care been available closer. But she knows mourning the loss would have been easier if family were closer.
To know 17 years later that it could still happen, it's unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. If you have the opportunity to build a new hospital and to have these services in a new hospital, I don't understand why you wouldn't.
Windsor Regional says it's looking to have a zone for children's emergencies in the new hospital, but it won't have a separate ER for them. But it's a battle Lo is willing to continue to fight.
My end game is for Windsor to have pediatric critical care, a separate children's ER. But ultimately, we all need our children to have better care in Windsor.
Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
A report out tonight from the province's patient ombudsman is linking staffing shortages in Ontario's health system to a growing number of complaints from patients. The story from our senior reporter at Queen's Park, Mike Crawley.
Honestly, I felt like I was left to die in a hallway with an IV in my arm.
Emily Wright felt the direct impact of short staffing in a hospital.
Nurses are heroes, and they're doing everything they can to make sure that they're giving patients the best care. But they're overwhelmed and overworked, and I felt like I wasn't able to get the kind of attention that I required when there was only one nurse for over 60 patients.
What Wright went through is anything but unique.
Anytime I tried to approach a nurse, they would either walk away from me or completely dismiss me. One of the worst experiences I have ever had in an emergency room.
Their stories are part of a trend seen in hospitals across Ontario as the stresses of the pandemic workload have got the system fraying at its edges. The province's patient ombudsman reports that complaints about hospital staff showing a lack of caring, courtesy or respect are up by 43%.
This report really is highlighting the strain that the system is under and the impact it's having on the patients, the residents, caregivers, and healthcare providers in general.
The Ombudsman draws a connection between the rise in complaints and staffing shortages. His report acknowledges that healthcare workers have been working hard in difficult circumstances for a long time.
We're not in the naming, blaming, and shaming business. We really want to be providing information and insight based on complaints that will help healthcare providers to do their jobs better.
One of those insights, the Ombudsman says hospitals could make things smoother for patients by doing a better job of telling them what's actually going on in emergency rooms.
Communications is fundamental. We just can't let that fall. We can't let that fall down.
Order.
The government's response to the rise in hospital complaints?
We have 30,000 nurses in our colleges and universities being trained to get into the field. That's what we're doing.
It feels like the Twilight Zone in here. I don't know where this premier and who he's talking to. But he isn't talking to Ontarians.
The patient ombudsman says the pandemic's effects on the healthcare system have not gone away, and with staffing shortages and long wait times still happening, he predicts the complaints about hospitals will keep on coming. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
A note now for parents with kids in elementary school. The health unit is warning families to get immunizations up to date. There are thousands of kids that do not have updated records. This is for shots that help protect against diseases like measles and mumps. Now, the deadline is in a couple of weeks, March 20th. Students without updated records will be suspended. The months-long strike at Highbury Canco in Leamington is now over after hundreds of union workers accepted a new deal to return to work. Now, the deal will span 4 years, according to the company's CEO. Union leaders say the majority of people at the tomato processor make $17 an hour. They'll see a 28% increase over the length of that deal, most of that at the front end. The company's CEO says he's excited the strike is over and believes this deal will mean a bright future for the company. But the membership is clearly divided on this deal. Only 52% of the 400 members voted to ratify the contract. That's according to a union official. They do believe it will bring more people, though, to the operation, adding that the company said it may be able to add another 100 jobs to the plant. The city's largest emergency shelter is the focus of a town hall meeting happening right now. People who live or work around the downtown Mission have been invited to City Hall to talk about problems they've been experiencing and possible solutions. The CBC's Dale Molnar joins us now live from that meeting. Dale, what can you tell us about what's happening behind you?
Well, Jason, as you can see behind me, there's basically a standing room only crowd here of people who live on Pelissier Street and maybe some other interested residents as well. Ronaldo Augustino, the councillor for the area, is here. He started things off at 6 o'clock. There are people from the Mission who are here, and also representatives from Windsor Police are also here. And so they've already started hearing some of the complaints, such as drug consumption, garbage, people fighting, break-and-enters, and other problems that are being created by this in their front lawns and maybe in their backyards. What's the people from the Mission who run the Mission are telling us is that this is a minority of people who are creating these issues. Ronaldo Augustino tells me that he's going to take some of these issues to City Council, to experts, he tells me, that are experts in crowd control, to see what they can do. And also, it's to be also told to these folks that this is not a permanent location. They are going to be looking for a permanent location for this. This is just temporary. They have to find out where the homeless hub is going to go, though. Stay tuned. We're going to find out a little bit more later. We'll let you know what happens tomorrow in our various newscasts and on our web. Back to you, Jason.
Thanks so much, Dale. The CBC's Dale Molnar reporting live tonight. There's been a large-scale police operation underway this week. Officers have been searching an area near the EC Row Expressway. They've been out since Monday morning. Windsor Police and the OPP are both involved, with police dogs also searching ditches this afternoon. Police are now saying the investigation is connected to a missing Windsor woman last seen in November of 2021. Now, family and friends first reported Kristen Scott missing when she stopped reaching out on birthdays and Christmas. Police say they've exhausted all leads last October. That's when they offered a $20,000 reward for anything that helps find her. She's in her 30s, 5 feet tall and about 90 pounds. Police are asking those who know anything to give them a call. It's not unheard of for municipal councils to have discussions the public aren't allowed to observe, and those are known as in-camera meetings. In Windsor recently, Windsor City Council made a decision behind closed doors that is drawing criticism and sparking concern for local democracy. That private meeting has also sparked a public complaint. One political science professor says in-camera meetings among municipal councils happen far too often across this country. And if decisions are made behind closed doors that really should be happening out in the open, here's why he says you should care.
Local governments are the lifeblood of democracy. And if we don't have a sense about not only what our local governments are deciding, but what deliberations happen to lead to those decisions, then that is actually a threat to democracy.
Last week, members of Windsor City Council met in camera to discuss appointments to boards and business improvement associations. Those BIAs are designed to attract business and people to specific areas of the city. During that meeting, they also decided to take control of all 9 BIAs for about 60 days. And they say they did that to ensure they're all playing by the same rules for things like finances, BIA elections, and membership. But the public and the BIAs weren't told this was being discussed ahead of time, and the city also didn't publicize its decision. The BIAs were told privately.
It's simply turning citizens into passive clients. You sit back, rest assured, and we'll tell you at some point maybe what we decided. That's not good enough. That's not a democratic system, and it's not a democratic process.
The city's clerk says this decision will essentially be ratified at the next public council meeting later this month. People can register as delegates to speak about the decision weeks after it was made. The Municipal Act says very clearly that all meetings must be held in open public session unless it meets at least one of the following exceptions for things like security, land acquisitions, litigation, trade secrets, or even personal matters. And that last one is the exemption the city clerk is claiming for the city's most recent in-camera meeting, saying that names of BIA board members were being discussed. But one local lawyer and municipal consultant disagrees and filed a public complaint.
But a decision like taking authority away from BIAs, which has a profound effect on the community, there's no exception for that, right? There's nothing that needs to be kept private. What's private about that? We elect our officials to do business in public.
Any member of the public can ask council's decision to go in camera be reviewed. However, it's unclear how long this takes or what the consequences could be. In other news, the ban on some single-use plastics has been a talker ever since the federal government introduced that idea. Plastic shopping bags, cutlery, straws, and stir sticks are being phased out, but today the first legal test of the ban got underway at a court in Toronto. David Thurton reports.
Hey, ho, ho! Plastic solutions got to go!
A small protest for what is a big court case. A fight, they say, between nature and the big plastic lobby.
This is one of the largest environmental cases for Canada. It's similar to when the government was looking for a price on carbon and carbon pollution.
The case touches on the federal government's justification for listing plastics as toxic. Hanging in the balance is Ottawa's ability to ban single-use plastic items, something shoppers have now embraced, some reluctantly.
Now they're bringing back paper bags, which is hard to carry. You know, plastic bags are more convenient. You can carry it around. It's strong. Paper is it's ridiculous. I mean, it can rip in the snow.
I think it's great. It's pretty easy to bring your own bags, backpacks especially. It's not too bad, so I think it's a really great step.
A federal judge is hearing arguments from governments, environmental groups, and plastic companies. Lawyers for Imperial Oil, Dow Chemical, and others say they don't oppose reducing pollution, just the way the government is going about doing it. According to a legal brief the plastics industry filed in court, the federal government's plan has fatal flaws. Among those, it says it's not the federal government's place to regulate plastics. It's the provinces and territories. The government's decision to regulate all plastic products, it says, may be motivated by laudable goals like diverting waste from landfills. However, those goals must be pursued in accordance with the Constitution. The companies also say the federal government doesn't have enough science to back up the plastics ban, but Ottawa points to plastics littering rivers, even ending up in the water we drink.
We won't be deterred by a few international companies, multinationals, who are looking at their economic interest instead of looking at the greater interest of Canadians and the environment.
All of this is being weighed by a federal court judge, knowing that their decision, still a couple of months away, could in effect overturn the government's single-use plastic ban. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
Still to come here on CBC Windsor News Live at 6. There's some more snow on the way, if you can believe it. Your full weather forecast is coming up next. And time now for a live look at weather, and for that we go to our Colette Kennedy. Colette, I have to say I did step out this morning and I was a bit taken aback by all of the white stuff on the ground that I wasn't expecting, to be honest.
Yeah, there was some snow in the forecast, so I'm just going to say that, but pretty light stuff. So yeah, it can be disconcerting though. And you know, you were talking about, when we were just talking before this segment, the ups and downs of winter. And the way I'd frame it is that our anchor seasons, like like winter and summer are usually there. And then it's spring and fall that we think of as those ones with so many ups and downs as the anchor seasons are kind of duking it out for things. But this whole winter has been, yes, an up and down. Mild, mostly mild, and then storm. Mild, storm. You know. You've been living it too. So let's show you where we're at now and when we're going to get to the next storm, although I'm seeing a weaker one in our future here. All right, 3 degrees currently, and we've got freezing Sarnia, Goderich, Chatham, Kent, London at -2. So there we'll talk about the wind chill because of these stronger winds. Yeah, feeling like -8, and the winds have been something. So that cooler breeze there with the sustained winds, in most cases over 30 kilometers an hour or stronger, but then some areas where we're seeing those gusts still. If you don't see a numerical value, we don't have a gust over 30 at the moment, but Sarnia seeing that around 44. And look what's to come as we get into the evening hours. Now, this model, the Canadian model's blowing it up a little bit, maybe not quite this strong, but we are going to have those gusty winds overnight tonight, and then we'll find tomorrow morning they're still there, but they're easing, and by tomorrow afternoon, things should be greatly improved. But of course, sunshine is nice to have. It does help with snow melt too, right? But we are going to see a few changes as we get into the day tomorrow. So primarily we start off with that sun, and then I put us to partly cloudy as we go towards the afternoon hours, just because later afternoon and evening there'll be some variability, but it'll take some time before that even happens. So we get to enjoy some of the good stuff before we get there. Temperatures overnight tonight, that range from Windsor at -4, London at -6, but all in all with that breeze feeling like around -12 to kind of -13, -14. So that does put us at a cooler start again for the day tomorrow, but up to 5 degrees. On Thursday, we're talking about even more cloud pushing in, and that's just ahead of this next system that's headed our way. So this one, there's still not a lot of agreement from the models, but it is appearing like it is going to be a lighter snow, so I am saying that. And when I say lighter, I'm talking about it maybe being around a 5-centimeter event, and I'll be watching this carefully because I've got the temperature just above freezing because we could, again, get into some mixing, right? But that's sort of the next one on the horizon. And then I do want to just point out, too, as we head into the weekend, daylight savings time. So Saturday night, those clocks are going forward. I know some folks don't like that because they feel like you lose. That's me. I feel like I lose an hour of sleep, but it does mean then our sunsets are later, right? We get more of the daylight hours into the evening.
And then getting your kids to adjust to that too is also another challenge, unrelated to weather, but
yes, I think that is quite possibly the biggest challenge.
For sure. But it's nice to know, though, with the snow, I feel like we haven't gotten much of a winter, that maybe, I don't know if there'll be enough snow on Thursday or later in the week to go sledding, but maybe we can take advantage of that.
I'm not gonna agree to that at this point, but we'll see.
We'll see. Okay, thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Still to come here on CBC Windsor News at 6, we'll have the latest on the allegations of election interference in our country, and that's coming up right after the break. Opposition parties say they aren't happy with the Prime Minister's response to alleged election meddling, but they aren't walking away. It comes after Justin Trudeau announced last night he'd appoint a special investigator to look into claims that China interfered in the last 2 federal elections and perhaps weigh in on whether there should be a public inquiry or not. Ashley Burke has the latest from Parliament Hill.
He could pick someone independent, but he won't.
Pierre Poilievre casting doubt today on the Prime Minister's appointment of a special rapporteur before they're even selected.
He'll pick another Liberal establishment insider, a real Ottawa insider with some gray hair.
We will, of course, be open to suggestions that the various parties put forward for names.
The Prime Minister has been under pressure for weeks to launch a public inquiry into Beijing's attempts to interfere in the past 2 federal elections. Trudeau's now outsourced the decision on an inquiry to the rapporteur and also said he'd consult political parties on who should get that job. But how much say they'll have isn't clear.
We will ensure that whoever is chosen is someone who both has the capacity to ensure that we're doing all the right things to fight interference and has the capacity to give all Canadians confidence.
Trudeau also tasked 2 other intelligence review bodies with investigating, including one that involves parliamentarians. The opposition says even though it's not a public inquiry, they'll take part.
We will be part of every and any process that will anyhow contribute to protect our democracy.
Our member of parliament that's present on the committee, Don Davies, will participate, of course, but we want to be clear, we don't think that's sufficient.
Trudeau has admitted his government has been slow to follow up on past recommendations about how to tackle foreign interference, and he said that they need to do better on that front. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Minister of Defence has confirmed that the surveillance balloon shot down earlier this year after flying over Canada and the United States originated in China. But Anita Anand says it's still being analyzed, so she can't comment on what the balloon was doing. 3 other objects were shot down, including one over the Yukon. She was asked why.
When you have an object at 60,000 feet, it is less of a concern from a population standpoint and from a skies standpoint than an object at 40,000 feet. And the object over the Yukon was at about 38,000 feet, which did then pose a risk to the skies, which then occasioned the need to shoot it down.
The searches for the objects shot down over the Yukon and Lake Huron were abandoned. Anand says there is no indication those flying objects were affiliated with a foreign country. A disappointing setback today for Japan's space exploration program.
Main engine start. Solid boosters ignition and liftoff.
15 minutes after launching its new H-3 rocket, officials blew it up. No one was on board. They made the decision after one of the engines failed to ignite. This was the second failed attempt at liftoff for a project that has taken 9 years and cost more than $1 billion. It's seen as a major blow to Japan's aerospace industry. Now for some old-fashioned forms of communication. An American tourist in the Bahamas has picked up a bottle sent to sea by a Canadian crew of fishermen. 6 men returning from a stint at sea set this bottle adrift off the coast of Nova Scotia. That was 6.5 years ago. They each wrote their name on a note and tucked it inside. Last week, the bottle was picked up in the Bahamas. An American tourist used Facebook to track down the men. They were impressed their bottle arrived intact. And why not? It's an ancient and romantic gesture. Sailors and scientists have been doing it for thousands of years. That's it for us here at CBC Windsor News. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, for news anytime, head to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media as well. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Have a great night.